Hey, how you doing? Today we're going to look at some Aikido street fighting. Yeah, that was pretty much what I thought too. So here's a video I got sent. This is Aikido techniques for street fighting, brackets, self-defense. Now, I was sent this because I made public fairly recently that the first ever martial art I studied was Aikido. Many years ago when I was a kid at school growing up in Oxford. My French teacher at school also happened to be an Aikido instructor, Peter McGann, and I'd been obsessed with martial arts for years, so I went along, trained, loved it. And yeah, that was the Oxford City Aikido Club. I've since moved on from Aikido, and my views about Aikido are, well, they're probably not very controversial, but as a self-defense art, it doesn't work. As an art that involves physical movement, that allows you to grow, that allows you to develop what you're doing and work with a partner in a semi-controlled way, great, fine, knock yourself out. But you won't be knocking anyone else out. In my experience, once direct resistance is applied to Aikido, it often doesn't work. You can take some of the techniques and you can integrate them into other things. We talked about wrist locks recently. Aikido's full of them. Some of them are great. Some of them work in wrestling, in grappling, in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. But as a fighting art, yeah, not a big fan. So, this one's quite interesting. I trained as part of the British Combat Association for many years. I have a 4th degree black belt from them, and for a number of years I was quite involved in the combative self-defense world. Got some opinions about that too, but for now we'll put them aside and we'll just see all about Aikido techniques for street fighting.
Hey guys, AJ here with the Martial Arts Unlimited Association. Today we're going to look at some basic locks from a shoulder immobilization if someone's grabbing onto your shoulder. Here we go. Today we're looking at joint locks, not from the wrist, but we're looking at these from the shoulder grab. This is a minor immobilization. These are things that we look at in our TFC Jiu-Jitsu program. The first lock I'm going to show you today is off the single side.
I just have to say that I absolutely adore that lower third. The bit with his name that comes up, it's clearly a template, whether it's from the editing software or from Storyblocks, somewhere like that. But let's go back and watch it again, and I want you to tell me if, like me, when the guy on the right, JD, I think he's called, when his lower third appears, does it look like he's peeing on the floor?
In our TFC Jiu-Jitsu program, the first lock I'm going to show you today.
That's all I can see.
Single side shoulder. So
okay, so we've got a shoulder lock.
Here, the first thing that I want to do in any joint lock is trap over top of it. This prevents them to pull the.
Before we say anything else, I just want to say. Self-defense that starts from the sort of positions that aren't necessarily self-defense positions, self-defense scenarios, I really struggle with. You know, as a grappler, yes, this happens quite a lot. Somebody will try and go for a collar tie, they'll end up on you. If you're wearing, say, a jacket, if you're in a jacketed system and somebody grabs hold, if you're in a gi, somebody gets hold of that, fine, these things happen. But in a self-defense situation, if you're walking down the street, somebody puts their hand on your shoulder, do you want to break their arm? Probably not. I think you've got a lot of options here, but let's see what our Aikido street fighting man does.
Pull his arm out. Now what I'm going to do
securing
is I'm
it
going to
there, fine.
Here, and I'm going to draw
it's not really breaking his posture.
What this does is it bends the wrist. Now I'm going to take my elbow and bring it down and use my body and it drops him down.
Give me a second.
Do this again.
I want to read you something. This is Thomas Parkins, 1727, first ever treatise on wrestling written in English, dedicated treatise. There are other bits that have other treatises that have little sections on wrestling, but this is the first dedicated book on how to wrestle. Let me read you something. The pinion is when he hath his right arm upon your shoulder, arms or side. You get hold of his right wrist with your right hand. Lift your arm very high and your shoulder bone turns his arm together with the twist of your right hand upon his wrist. Let's watch that again.
Hand here, and I'm going to draw a big circle in the sky. And what this...
So you can see, clearly, this is what he's describing here. He has his right arm upon your shoulder. You get hold of his right wrist with your right hand, lift your arm very high, and your shoulder bone twists his arm. Great. That's opinion. As a technique, this works. We know this works. I use a variation of this regularly to set up a flying mesh throw, so a shoulder throw, so that when I've got somebody's arm and you come underneath, I throw that one up all the way to bring it across to draw their arm right on top of my shoulder, and that allows me then to drop and throw them over. It's great. As a technique, I love this. So for now, I'm pleasantly surprised. Street fighting Aikido techniques, good, yeah. Let's get back and see if it stays awesome.
Does is it bends the wrist. Now I'm going to take my elbow and bring it down and use my body, and it drops him down. So we'll do this again. I trap, I loop, and I bend. Now what can happen here is if my body's turned, is it will turn him over, and that defeats the purpose. So the idea here is to not only bend, but look towards him and drop. Okay?
This is one of the things that I think causes Aikido to struggle reputationally within the world of martial arts that actually fight, because what you've got is a scenario that does occur. You've got an initial setup that's pretty good. You know, you're securing that, you're bringing it over, you're taking control, you're effectively breaking posture, and then you're kind of giving all that away and going for a strange little lock just because it's a bit fancy and technical. And I think that these very small, fine motor movements simply don't work, because it only takes a tiny movement on the part of, in this case, JD, the initial attacker, to completely foil this. Whereas from that position, you have a whole range of things you can do. You know, you can take him down incredibly easily. You can go for a straight arm lock. You can do all sorts of things there, but he's not doing them.
Now what happens though if he's on this side?
Okay, so he's going across to the other side now.
So what I'm going to have to do is insert my thumb into the hand. I come up over top. I use these 3 fingers to grab the meat. Turn away.
If somebody is attacking you, and this is self-defense, so we've got to assume that this is somebody attacking. This is not just, you know, somebody wandering down the street and tapping him on the shoulder saying, "Excuse me, do you have the time?" Because it would probably be frowned upon to break the wrist of somebody, say, I don't know, an old lady collecting for charity. So we're going to assume that he's actually being attacked here. Somebody reaches across, takes hold of his shoulder, and he places his thumb inside their grip. Why would you do that? What a ridiculous idea. You've got hold of me. You mean me harm. Here, please break my thumb.
My free hand grabs the elbow to bend, and I peel. Now I'm in the same position, but now I keep it close to my body. I face, I turn, I drop. Okay? One more time. We're here. Block.
Could you not just clear his arm? If his arm's here, just clear it. Take it away. Hold it, push, clear the arm off, back away, create some space, put a fence up, and then if he comes towards you again, floor him. You know, is that not how we do these things? Why are we doing kind of thumb inside their grip, fingertippy, tickling, armpit type arm locks? We're not. They're useless. They don't work.
All right. Now, the second lock I want to show you guys.
Lock number 2.
The shoulder lock. So this is one of my favorite locks.
We'll ignore the lower third.
What I'm going to do now is I'm going to, almost like I'm making a circle with my hands.
Okay, interesting.
I'm use my body weight and move my hands to grab the arm. And I do that by making this position.
Initially, I don't have any problems with this. This is looking pretty good too. I don't really like this whole, ooh, I'm going to make a circle. No, I'm just going to take hold of it. It's a baseball bat grip. It's a 2-on-1. You know, these are all principles that we're quite familiar with. We're using rotational force of our body to disrupt the posture of our opponent. We're getting a dominant grip, 2 hands on their 1 arm, so that we've got a strength advantage. And that's putting us in a great situation. So at that point, they're at our mercy. We can do all sorts of things with them. Let's see what he does.
My hands, I turn, and I grab the arm. I drive the arm in front of my body. I'm going to throw my hand in front of his, and I'm going to roll. Okay, let's do it from the other side.
Yeah, I have no words.
Okay, again, same side. Here.
Good.
Insert.
Bad.
I move around.
Utterly ridiculous.
Using my body. You can obviously drive. Throw your
Why would you do that?
What happens now with the lock?
I genuinely can't understand why anybody would want to do that. If you've got an opponent, you've got control of their arm, you've got two hands on one, you've broken their posture, you can do pretty much anything you want. You can take them down, you can arm drag, you can clear distance, you can do what you can put a double wrist lock on, kimura for those jiu-jitsu folk out there. You know, there's all sorts of ways you can do this. You can step in for a double, you can just pull him round, you can take his back. The possibilities are endless. I strongly recommend, if you find yourself in this situation, that what you don't do is spin round and somehow, I don't know, tie them up with some weird shit behind your back. Don't do that. That's silly.
It is on the cross side. So in this case, a little bit different. So now what I'm going to do the same thing, except once I have the pull, this hand's coming over top, you grab, and I'm bringing the hand.
Oh, for a second, that looked so good. For a second, I thought, he's got a double wrist lock.
Come over top, figure 4 lock, and drive it
Okay, and he's turning it into kind of like a standing Americana. Fair enough. You know, and now he's putting the little wrist lock. Okay, that's okay, I guess.
The next one that we have.
Is that Aikido? It looks kind of judo-esque to me, but I mean, standing, I guess. The wrist lock, fine. I mean, I've used that on the ground. I wouldn't use it standing because the joy and the power and the strength and the dominance of that double wrist lock hold comes from the 2-on-1, comes from this locked, everything together, nice and tight. That's the position. You've got a dominant hold and you can do all sorts of things. And to take the wrist lock, what you have to do is release some of the control that you have with that in order to put pressure through the wrist. You don't need to put pressure through the wrist at this point. So you wouldn't want to lose control because you don't have control of their movement in other ways. If you've got them on the floor and you're on top, maybe you're in a side control position, maybe you're in mount, whatever it is, you can afford to lose some of the control of that 2-on-1 arm hold because you've got control elsewhere. But as soon as you start letting go, the other guy's just going to take his arm away, right? I mean, I would. Unless he's just standing there and letting him put the lock on. Double wrist lock to Americana. Yeah, fair enough, if that's what you want to do. I'd probably stay low because I know I can take him down beautifully. But that kind of upper figure 4 arm lock, the Americana, works beautifully. You see it in medieval manuscripts as well, coming in with a dagger thrust, coming in, block it, catch it, pull them backwards, rotate the arm. It's a lovely way to take somebody down. If you put it on hard and fast, you can probably damage some of the ligaments, the soft tissues within the shoulder. Great, we know that works. So, yeah, I guess this one's okay.
Same thing from the cross side. Same thing, I'm grabbing, making a circle with my hand.
I'm starting to get a little bit annoyed by that logo.
I'm going to rotate the hand so that the palm faces me. Grab the meaty part. And I'm going to lift him up.
This is what I was saying. You see, he's letting go of the dominant grip of the arm in order to put a wrist lock on that simply isn't going to work because the other person still has free movement. He's not got control of his movement. He's not broken his posture. He's simply going to take his arm away.
So now I'm going to bend. I'm going to step. My body and rotate to get the lock.
Okay, and now we're stepping underneath. This is beginning to look a little bit more like country dancing than fighting. But if I'm going to step through, if I'm going to lift somebody's arm up and I'm going to step underneath it, I'm certainly not going to then turn my back on them. Why would you give up your back? You know, if you've got control of their arm, you've lifted it up, you can step through, then you can take their back. That's a far more dominant position than squeezing their fingers a little bit. Yeah, well, okay. I'll try and stop ranting. I'll fail, but I'll try.
With my body. And again, that's just attribute building. To get that off at live speed might be very difficult, but it does give you a better understanding of how the joint lock works. There you go.
Well, I love watching the uke or the NPCs in this sort of thing. You know, we know this is the guy. He's giving us the tutorial. He's talking to us. He's leading this whole thing. I love watching the other guy. You get a lot more entertaining facial expressions. People trying to look interested when they've probably done this drill 1,000 times, and this is maybe the 15th take, and they've still not quite got it right. Next time you're watching something, watch the guys that aren't performing the technique. If there are people in the audience, in the crowd, watch them, because they're always really good value. But yeah, okay, Aikido techniques for street fighting. I think there are some valid techniques in there. I'd be lying if I said it was completely rubbish. I think the way they're put on, the positions they're put in, the context within which they're used is wrong and deeply dangerous. Teaching people this sort of thing and telling them that this is going to keep them safe if they're attacked on the street is simply not true. It's dangerous to them. It's going to lead people into dangerous situations with a false sense of security, a false sense of confidence in their own ability, and they are going to come a cropper because of it. So it makes me really cross. You probably spotted that. But anyway, do you think I'm right? Do you agree? Is Aikido pants for self-defense? Or is it actually pretty good? Put something in the comments. Let me know. I'd love to hear your thoughts, and I'd love to know what you think. And if there's any videos or any arts or any instructors that you'd like to get my thoughts on, do send me a message, either here, over on Instagram. I'm English Martial Arts on Instagram as well. I'd love to hear from you. Fight team!